You ever feel like someone's watching you, even when you're alone? It's that unsettling sensation that creeps up your spine, making the hairs on the back of your neck stand on end, like a shadow out of the corner of your eye that disappears the second you look. It's as if the darkness itself is alive, playing tricks on your mind. Well, that's how it started for me. A fleeting glimpse of something that shouldn't be there, a feeling of being watched when no one was around. I didn't expect my life to flip on its head when I moved into that small apartment in the heart of the city. It was supposed to be a fresh start, a new beginning in a place where no one knew my name. It wasn't anything special, peeling paint, creaky floors, but it was cheap. And I was desperate to escape my past, to find a place where I could finally breathe. But cheap always has a price that isn't always measured in dollars and cents. Sometimes it's measured in sleepless nights and the gnawing feeling of dread. And sometimes that price isn't in cash. It's in the whispers you hear when you're alone, the shadows that seem to move on their own, and the sense that something unseen is always just out of sight, lurking in the darkness. Everything seemed perfectly normal for the first few weeks, but then the strange occurrences began. At first, it was just minor things I could easily dismiss. My keys vanishing, items mysteriously shifting places. It's the kind of thing where, if you mentioned it, people would just think you were absent-minded. But then came a night that changed everything. A night that still sends chills down my spine. What happened next was beyond anything I could have imagined. I jolted out of bed. That sound, it was coming from the closet. You know that feeling when your body goes cold and your skin prickles? Yeah, that was me. Every instinct told me not to look. But curiosity, it's a beast of its own. Nothing in there. But then a woman dressed in lingerie, tall with heels, moving seductively towards me. I blinked and she was gone. What just happened? Over the next few days, things got weirder, more intense. It was as if the very air around me had changed, becoming thicker, more oppressive. The nights felt longer, and the shadows seemed to stretch out, reaching for me. I could feel something watching me. I'd find woman panties and bras laying around in strange places, the kitchen counter, the bathroom sink, even draped over the back of the living room chair. It was unsettling, to say the least. I lived alone, so where were they coming from? Each discovery sent chills down my spine. And one morning I woke up with scratches on my arm. 3 distinct claw marks, like someone or something was trying to get my attention. The marks were fresh, stinging, and they seemed to pulse with a strange energy. What was trying to reach me? I had hickeys on my chest and neck. They appeared overnight, and I had no memory of how they got there. It was as if an invisible lover had visited me in the dark, leaving behind these intimate marks. But who or what was it? And here's the thing that's hard to explain. Every time something strange happened, I'd hear whispers. They were faint, almost like a breeze rustling through leaves, but they carried a weight that made my heart race. What were they trying to tell me? Not loud, but just enough to make me shiver. The whispers seemed to come from the walls, the floor, even the very air around me. They were always just on the edge of my hearing, never clear enough to understand, but always present, always there, haunting me, almost like it was trying to communicate with me. I started to feel like I was being watched, followed. The shadows in my apartment seemed to move on their own, and I could swear I saw a figure lurking just out of sight. It was as if the woman in the shadows was trying to reach out to me, to tell me something, but what and why? The answers seemed just out of reach, leaving me in a state of constant dread. I couldn't take it anymore. I started digging around, asking the neighbors if anyone had lived here before me. Finally, an old woman who lived down the hall pulled me aside, her voice barely a whisper. Old woman, mysterious tone. They don't want you here. The ones before you, they tried to reach out to them too. No one stayed long. My blood ran cold. I thought about running, but something kept pulling me back. I had to know. I had to understand. What were they hiding? So I did what no sane person would do. I decided to make contact. I set up a few candles, whispered into the darkness, and I waited. What happened next would change everything. Candles flicker and the room temperature plummets as eerie sounds pierce the silence. It began with a whisper, then escalated to a low, menacing hum, and finally a voice that wasn't mine, but it echoed from within me. "Leave, or you'll be next." I bolted up, shattering the protective circle I'd made, and then the room fell deathly silent, but the feeling that dark presence, it lingered. If anything, it grew stronger. What would happen next? The next morning, I decided to do some research. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story, something hidden in the shadows of the past. What I found was chilling. Turns out the building used to be a house for prostitution, a place where many dark and tragic events unfolded, events that left a mark on the very walls. But a fire wiped it out. The flames consumed everything, leaving behind only ashes and memories. Or so I thought. People died, including a young woman. Her story was particularly haunting and eerily familiar. Who had a family and her husband looked a little too much like me. The resemblance was uncanny, almost as if history was trying to repeat itself. And here's the kicker. People say she was trying to escape. Desperation and fear marked her final days. But she never made it out. But a John wouldn't let her. Her cries for help were silenced by the walls of that cursed place. Her spirit, they say, still roams those halls. So I packed up. I left. I thought distance would free me from the grip of the past. But I was wrong. But there's a part of me that feels like it's still with me. The shadows of that place seem to follow me wherever I go. And they're getting closer. That feeling like someone's watching. It's a constant presence, a whisper in the dark, a whisper that's growing louder. It's been 3 months and it hasn't gone away. Every creak, every shadow reminds me of that night. The haunting truth is, some stories never really end. They linger, waiting for the next chapter to unfold. And I fear my story is just beginning. And every night the whispers grow louder. Did I bring something back with me? Or did it ever leave? What if it's still here, watching you, waiting? What lies beyond the shadows? Hit that like button and subscribe for part 2, if you dare to uncover the truth. The journey has just begun.